Things you should know this week. The designated collection for this month is for Sea Alliance. Social Equity Through Education is a youth-led, multi-generational movement based in Florida, building real, lasting political power through data-driven school board organizing and bold community action. In other words, we like them very, very much. It's your weekly reminder. Please check the back of your bulletins for exciting things going on this week. We did put a reminder this time, Jean put a lovely reminder on the bulletins that we do have hymnals, both the teal and the gray hymnals in the bookshelves on either side in the back there. If you are more comfortable with a hymnal than looking up at the screens, please feel free to grab them. Also, please feel free to put them back at the end of the service. And one last one, the Immigration Justice Coalition of Southwest Florida and Lutheran Services Florida invite you to celebrate the Refugee Artist Presentation on September 12th at the UU Church in Sarasota from 4 to 7. So I really encourage you to go to that. It ought to be amazing.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Venice, known as UCOV. My name is Marcia Smith, and I'm the worship associate for this morning's service. We gather today in the spirit of reverence for the web of life that connects us all. The Seminole people teach that every tree, every river, every creature is kin, and the health of one affects the health of the whole. Today, as we open our hearts to worship, we remember that we are part of that great circle of belonging, and we welcome longtime members and first-time visitors as family. May this time together help us to see more clearly, love more deeply, and act more gently toward all our relations, human and more than human alike. If anyone is here for the first time and is feeling comfortable to do so, please raise your hand and someone will bring you a microphone. We'd love to welcome you and you can introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Angel, and this is my husband, Bob. We've been here 2 times before, so I'm not really a first-timer, but we've been away for about 7 weeks. We went to Alaska to visit our daughter and her family. So I wanted to reintroduce ourselves and say thank you for being here and thank you for welcoming us.
Thank you, Angel.
God bless you.
Welcome back.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you. And I see we have some returnees this week, so if you folks want to wave your hands and welcome them back. Yeah. It's lovely to see the seats fill in and see those familiar faces again. We are now entering a sacred space, so please silence your electronics that you may have brought with you today. We kindle this flame to honor the sacred circle of life. Like the fire at the center of an indigenous camp, this flame reminds us that we are never alone, that the earth beneath us, the wind around us, and the waters that sustain us are part of the same great story. May this light guide us to live in harmony with all that is.
I'm so glad to see all of you here today. The Spanish in Florida used to use a word that meant wild or runaway for anybody who was indigenous who escaped one of their missions and went off to live anywhere else. The Muskogee Creek liked this word. It sounded good in their language, but it slowly, through linguistic drift, became Seminole, which meant free people who lived at a distant fire. The Seminole were never a single unified tribe at their inception. They formed through a process of ethnogenesis, cultural formation. Groups would wander in and be accepted, very much like UUs. They clustered close, but not too close. Each village had a little bit different flavor based on who was there. They liked to do things their own way. And so today we're going to look a little bit at their way of life, and especially at the life of one of their most well-known leaders, Osceola. So come and let us worship here together. Please rise as you are willing and able and join me in our first hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. We're just doing 3 verses, 1 through 3. This is the time in the service when we do our offering, and our offering is always done with a joke, because giving should not be painful, so I try to give you something to look forward to. A man driving on Tamiami was being tailgated by a horribly frowning woman wearing a clerical collar. Suddenly the light turned yellow just in front of him. He did the right thing and stopped, even though he could have beaten the light by zooming through the intersection. Well, the tailgating woman wouldn't have it. She hit the roof, hit the horn, and threw a finger or two. She screamed in frustration out the window as she missed her chance to get through the intersection, and as she was still in mid-rant, she heard a tap on her window and looked up at the face of a very serious police officer. The officer ordered her to exit the car with her hands up and took her to the police station, where she was searched and fingerprinted and photographed and placed in a cell. After a few minutes and a bout of identification, the policeman approached her cell and opened the door. He escorted her back to the booking desk, where the arresting officer waited with all her personal effects, and in confusion she said, "What is going on?" He said, "Well, I'm very sorry for this mistake, Reverend. You see, I pulled up behind your car while you were blowing your horn, flipping off the guy in front of you, and cussing a blue streak. And I noticed the standing on the side of Love license plate and the What Would Buddha Do bumper sticker and the Follow Me to RE. And I assumed you had stolen the car." So that I never have to take up stealing cars, the morning offering will now be given and gratefully received. Thank you so much, both for what you gave today and for all that you do for the life and the work of this community. You are so appreciated. Because it's the community that matters. We come together here as a community of human hands and human hearts. We come together to bear witness and to minister to each other as we struggle with life's sorrows and we celebrate life's joys. So if you have a joy or a sorrow to share, please raise a hand and Jean will bring you a microphone.
Good morning. I have my daughter Sarah here today from New Mexico, where I've been for since Easter, and I'm just so glad to be back.
I'm Marianne Kerner. I don't have permission to say this, but Michael Scanlon was taken back to the hospital last night to the ER because he had another brain bleed. So hold him in your heart, and Nancy as well.
Excuse me, good morning. Our joy is to report in, since we've been here last, we flew up to Buffalo to see how our dear Carol Wolfers is doing and how she's adjusting to her move. And she's probably embarrassed because I know she watches this service every Sunday. But she's doing great. We had a grand tour of Buffalo, and there's so much more to see. We went to Niagara Falls, did some great dining, and boy, are we glad that the kids gave us Buffalo Bill t-shirts. Because coming home on that plane, we knew that we had better not be wearing anything else. The city is crazy over the Bills. But Carol's doing great, and she got a beautiful apartment, and we love her, and I don't know if she's embarrassed that we're doing this, but I don't know where the camera is, but if everybody would be willing to wave to Carol. Thank you.
I'm Dick Pastor, and I leave in 4 days for Portugal and Spain. I'm looking forward to it. Nancy, unfortunately, has to stay home. She's recovering from knee surgery, so she will I'll commiserate with her.
Hi, I'm Barb
Thank you.
Gundy. My two joys are yesterday, we got a new great niece in our family, Nora Lynn, and also a second niece got engaged.
All right.
Hi, I'm Pam Palmer. I have a joy. Richard, after several months, has finally managed to get here on a Sunday, and I'm real happy in his beautiful pink shirt. Somebody said he hasn't been here so long he should go to the welcome desk and get a new name tag. And my sorrow is what the various governments in this country are doing to our health system just scares the bejesus out of me. I just say to myself, I don't know if I was young enough to have a child, would I still live in Florida? And I don't know what to do about it. So if anybody has any ideas, please let me know.
Hi, I'm John Van Camp, and Katie and I came down just because we missed all of you, and that's our joy. In addition to that, we're down because we're closing on the home that we had, and we're moving into Jacaranda Trace. So we'll be here for a couple of weeks before going back to Michigan.
Well, it's my turn. I'm the birthday lady. I'm Jean Barlow, and today is our birthday celebration. You can see here we've got quite a few members who are celebrating September birthdays. Eileen Leapley had the first one of the month. She had September 1. And you can see this list. It's wonderfully complete. We have Marcy Aboff Peterson, who may or may not be watching. Lorraine, are you here today? Lorraine Bortner? Happy birthday. Serena, we're so glad you're back, and happy birthday to you, too. Ann Harrison, not here. Elizabeth Heston, are you here? Eileen, of course, is. Sal, did Sal Lorenzo make it today? Oh, I'm sorry. Linda Taylor. Linda is home. She had a little medical thing that she needed to stay home for and just rest today. So please hold her in your heart as well. Lisa Willott, and then two new ones that signed at the end, Paul Carlucci and Mike Keogh. Wow, that's a lot of people in September. We wish you all a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Thank you, Lisa. Happy birthday, everybody.
I lit a candle for myself. My sorrow this week is my dad. Guess what he did? Again, so he has broken his back one more time. He's getting cemented this week. He now refers to himself as the incredible bouncing Bob. Other than that, we're doing good. May the love of this community hold all who need love and concern, and may the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May we never look away when we are needed. May those who are grieving be comforted, and those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed, and may those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant.
Our first reading is from Wage Peace by Judith Hill. Wage peace with your breath. Breathe in firemen and rubble. Breathe out whole buildings and flocks of red-winged blackbirds. Breathe in terrorists and breathe out sleeping children and freshly mown fields. Breathe in confusion and breathe out maple trees. Breathe in the fallen and breathe out lifelong friendships intact. Wage peace with your listening, hearing sirens, pray loud. Remember your tools, flower seeds, clothespins, clean rivers. Make soup, play music, learn the word for thank you in 3 languages. Learn to knit and make a hat. Think of chaos as dancing raspberries. Imagine grief as the outbreath of beauty or the gesture of fish. Swim for the other side. Wage peace. Never has the world seemed so fresh and precious. Have a cup of tea and rejoice. Act as if armistice has already arrived. Don't wait another minute. Our meditation today is words attributed to Chief Seattle. Chief Seattle was a leader of the Duwamish and Suquamish peoples, a leading figure among his people. He pursued a path of accommodation to white settlers, and, as you may have guessed, the city of Seattle was named after him. He was a brilliant speaker, and a widely publicized speech urging favor of ecological responsibility and respect for Native American land rights has been attributed to him. These are some of those words. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. Holding these words in mind, please join me in 1 minute of silent thought, meditation, or prayer. Our second reading is from a novel, Light a Distant Fire by Lucia St. Clair Robeson. She did extensive research into the life and culture of the indigenous people, and she wrote several novels. This one is about Osceola, the Seminole leader, and it depicts his experience as he undergoes a vision quest or a learning, an initiation experience, and it shows their connection to the natural world. The clicks and the rubbing of chitinous carapaces sounded like wind rustling dry leaves. But no breeze stirred the dark green canopy of the mangroves, or rippled the black water beyond them. Not much else moved within the mad basketry of prop roots that rose 15 feet to connect with the mangrove trunks. No raccoons harvested the oysters clinging to the roots exposed by the low tide. The ibis and herons and anhingas had left their rookeries here to fish the teeming estuaries of Tampa Bay. A gaudy orange and yellow corn snake lay curled, tranquil as a cat in the crotch of a mangrove. The snake's stomach bulged with the swamp rat it was digesting. In the still, humid air of the clearing where crickets sat, dragonflies stitched erratic courses after mosquitoes. The sun struck iridescent green and blue and purple and gold sparks from the dragonflies' slender bodies. The air thrummed with the shrill crepitation of insects. Katydids rocked on the tips of grass blades. Cricket stared hypnotized at the seething current of fiddler crabs advancing toward him. He was naked and vulnerable. The crabs would swarm over him. They would perch on the ridges of his brows and cheekbones. The crabs would strip the flesh from him. His dry, clean bones would rest in the sparse turtle grass. Mice would nest in his skull. Flowers would grow through the curved bars of his ribs. The idea of getting up and walking away flashed through Cricket's mind, but he couldn't move. His wandering soul had left his body as helpless as the brittle, papery husk shed by a cicada. For 12 days, Cricket had been studying under Abika's stern tutelage. Now hunger and the sun on his shaved head, the exhaustion of his vigil and the intoxicating effects of the Sawatchko root were playing with his senses. In the shimmering waves of heat, the mangrove trees began to shimmy and bob on their ungainly stilts. They seemed to be trying to tug free of the black muck that held them. Like enormous dancing centipedes, they swayed in time to the pulse of the insect song. In the moist oven of mid-June, Cricket's teeth began to chatter. The sound blended with the growing susurrus of the crabs, whose first rank had reached the edge of the clearing. Behind them, the mangroves were working themselves into a frenzy as though whipped by a hurricane. Cricket's face muscles cooperated enough to twitch into a smile before he surrendered to his vision. If the crabs ate him, he would become part of the great circle that was life. His flesh would be divided into thousands of bits and would grow as part of the crabs, then part of whatever ate them. For an instant, he saw the world as did every living creature in it. The answers to every question were almost in his grasp. For the length of time a dragonfly took to beat his wings, Cricket weighed nothing. His spirit spread through smoke, through time. The sun fractured into golden arrows that shot into him. From a spot on the crown of his head, heat flowed like syrup through his body. The dragonflies laced a veil of iridescent color around him. He felt the radiant sapphire and emerald and amethyst light drift languidly around him like spider webs. Please join in body or spirit in singing 121, We'll Build a Land, verses 1, 2, and 4.
I've always loved the stories about Osceola, and we're lucky that a lot of stories about him were able to be preserved, in part because he interacted with white people, in part because his own family was part Scottish. His birth name in the white tradition was Billy Powell. In the native tradition, it was Cricket. He never lived as a white person at any point. His grandfather was a white Scottish trader. His grandmother was a 4'5" ball of fire. The woman's name was Fighting in a Line. And apparently, at one point, Andrew Jackson and his troops personally captured the women of Osceola's village while the men were out hunting. They rounded them all up, and little bitty Fighting in a Line, after arguing so hard that the soldiers picked her up, 2 of them, and swung her between them like a kid to walk her off to the side, she composed herself and she went back to argue with Andrew Jackson, and did it so well that he gave up and released the entire group of women and children. And she apparently preened herself on out-arguing Mad Andrew Jackson for the rest of her life. So we're here today under the same Florida sun that shone on the Florida Everglades 2 centuries ago, the same sun that warmed Osceola and the Seminole people, the free people of a distant fire. They came together from a lot of places. Creek, Muskogee, 4 or 5 other original tribes. They were held together by kinship and by shared purpose. So today we are talking about Osceola, a Seminole leader, and a vision of right living that still has a lot of meaning for us today. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a lesson in what it meant to them to live in harmony, how to call out what is perverse and unjust, and how to stand in courage against greed and violence. The whole Seminole worldview begins with connection. For them, everything is connected in a very real web. To live well is to live in right relationship with your people and the land and the spirits and the Creator. They had absolutely no concept of owning land the way Europeans did. I mean, they got that the Europeans believed that was a thing. They just didn't. How could you own a gift of the Creator? They believed that land was owned by the Creator and that you were simply a steward, but you did not own it in the way we understood that. So you might have your farm, but it was a gift to you, and so you could just as easily give it away. They believed that each person had a duty to act in balance with the whole. When someone did something wrong, they were called perverse ones. Not evil, because evil implies something is absolute, but perverse, with the original meaning, twisted, away from the path of righteous living. So imagine how different our world would feel if when someone was greedy or violent, they were named as perverse rather than evil. Not as an eternal enemy, but as someone who has turned away from the circle of rightness and family and can be brought back. Of the Seminole, there were Creeks who had left Georgia and Alabama, black and mixed heritage people who had fled enslavement, and others who just wanted freedom. They became that people of many fires scattered across Florida, and they came together whenever danger came. As I said earlier, the word Seminole itself possibly came from the Spanish word that meant runaway, but it drifted. And the whole feeling of it was people who do their own thing and don't listen to the Spanish. And it's actually a beautiful image. All these communities scattered throughout Florida, where runners would go to talk from one to the other. They would go visiting. But there was no king. There was no overall master leader. They just chose to work together. This image resonates for us as UUs. We are people of distant fires. We're congregations scattered all over the country. We share a faith in justice and compassion, the inherent worth and dignity. So there's a lot to grab onto here, and into that world of scattered fires, Osceola was born in 1804, near what is now Alabama. He had a Creek mother, an English father. But by his teens, he was living in Florida, living with his mother. His father kind of disappeared off the scene pretty much immediately. His grandmother helped to raise him, and one of the things he was known for is the scars on his arms. She used to use the head of a gar fish, as many Seminole mothers and grandmothers did, and when you did something wrong and were verging on being a perverse one, you would get your arm scratched lightly with that gar, just hard enough to draw faint blood, so that you would remember, as long as it stung, that you had done something that was out of harmony. Apparently, historically, Osceola had arms that were absolutely scratched to the dickens because he liked to devil his grandmother. But history remembers the man because he refused to bend the knee to injustice. In the early 1800s, the U.S. was pushing the Seminole people to sign treaties to give up their land to move west. They created fake chiefs, or they picked small minor chiefs and claimed, oh, this is a major chief of the Seminole, and so he can sign away everything. This was the era of the Indian Removal Act, when President Andrew Jackson made it national policy to uproot Native peoples from their ancestral homes. The Seminole referred to him as Old Mad Andrew Jackson. And Osceola opposed that removal fiercely. He refused to sign the Treaty of Payne's Landing, a treaty that was supposed to be voluntary, but it was signed after threats and days of trouble by only a few minor leaders under heavy pressure. He called it a lie, an action by the perverse ones, a perversion of justice. And when the government agents tried to enforce it, he fought back, not out of a love of war, but because he believed it was right to defend the people, the land, and the free black families that had taken shelter among the Seminole. This is one of the most remarkable things about the Seminole tribes. Unlike white settlers who largely supported and profited from slavery, the Seminole would welcome enslaved and formerly enslaved people and make them part of the community. They just refer to them as Black Seminole. They fought alongside them as equals. So this is a time when the dominant white culture thought slavery was normal, so the Seminole position was absolutely radical. They believed that owning people as objects was wrong. It was a twisting of life's balance and a refusal to see the humanity of others in their language. It was a perverse act. The Seminole idea of slavery, because you will hear people claim, well, the Seminole had slaves, they were just as bad. Yes, and. The Seminole notion of what they called slavery was when an enslaved person would show up, a formerly enslaved person would show up and say, help me, help me, help me. Someone who had been farming and had cleared an area would say to them, you may have this field in this area. Please make a gift every year in thanks for what you've been given. And so the person would farm their little area, and every year they would give a small percentage to the person who had cleared that land and helped them out. Could they leave? Absolutely. At any point, they could say, it's been great to be here. I am moving somewhere else, and everyone would wish them well and throw them a farewell feast. Could they choose to stop working? Absolutely. They could get sick. They could go home. They could quit. For Seminoles, their concept of slavery was relational. The black people were allowed to start their own community, live in their own groups, usually very near a Seminole town, and they paid that small amount of crops and livestock to their masters, who also provided them support and protection. The slaves were free to control their own labor, to leave. It let them become vital allies and warriors. They could even hold positions of influence in the tribe. They weren't considered tribal members unless they were adopted or married in, but they were right there living independent lives. And when I read this, I think about our UU principles. When we say we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, they were living that a couple hundred years ago. At great risks. They were hunted not just for their land, but because their existence threatened the system of racial slavery in the South. Who would want to stay a slave if you could escape and make it to Seminole, Florida, and be treated as a human being? Osceola became the symbol of the resistance. He led raids, he freed enslaved people, he struck fear into the hearts of the U.S. Army. He was not reckless, he was deeply strategic. He fought because he had to, because peace without justice is not peace. And he was captured by the U.S. Army under General Thomas Jessup in 1837 under a white flag of truce. To discuss peace, he was near St. Augustine, Florida. This was the most dishonorable betrayal of the customs of warfare at the time that could possibly happen. There was a huge public outcry among white people, the shock that someone, an American, white, someone, would attack under a flag of truce no matter who the enemy was. Thomas Jessup never recovered from the shame and the damage to his career, but Osceola was imprisoned and died in captivity in Fort Moultrie in South Carolina at 34 years old. Even his enemies admired his courage. When I think about his story, I think about the word for those who do wrong. Perverse ones. The soldiers who broke their word were perverse ones. The politicians who signed away land that was not theirs to give, perverse. Those who profited from slavery, perverse. And there are perverse ones still among us, those who put profit among people, who destroy the world for short-term gain, who deny housing and dignity for those in the margins. And heck, sometimes we're the perverse ones. Sometimes we have a day when we say, it's not my problem. It happens to all of us. But we too are people of distant fires. Our little congregation is one small flame in a vast network of communities, all trying to bring more light into the world. And just as the Seminole came together, whenever danger loomed, we can join our fires together. Because our call is not conquest or dominion, it's harmony. To live so that relationships with each other and the earth are right and balanced. But harmony doesn't mean silence. The Seminole were peaceful, but when forced to choose between harmony and justice, they chose resistance. Sometimes resisting is the most harmonious thing you can do. Sometimes peace requires raising your voice, or marching in the street, or writing letters, or voting for the world you believe in. So what does this mean for us on, say, a Tuesday morning, sitting there sipping our coffee? Excuse me. Number one, live simply. The Seminole didn't accumulate beyond what they needed in a world of endless consumption. Every choice to live simply is a radical act. Defend the vulnerable. Name the perverse. Don't be afraid to say that greed is wrong, violence for profit is wrong, turning away those who are suffering is wrong. and tend your fire. Keep your spirit alive. You can't help anyone else if you haven't put the oxygen mask on your own face first. You need to play. You need to do the things that nurture you before you can help anyone. Osceola's grave is still in St. Augustine, where at least most of him is buried. The Seminole never surrendered, never. To this day, they are the only nation that never signed a formal peace treaty with the U.S., not out of stubbornness, but out of principle. They remain, to this day, a sovereign nation, a testament that perversion does not have the last word. We're called to be like them, steadfast and principled, unwilling to bow to injustice. Whether we live in harmony with the earth, when we welcome the stranger, when we refuse to participate in systems of harm, we honor this way of life. May we keep our own distant fires burning. May we draw courage from their light, and may we walk forward together in justice and in harmony and in love. Amen. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of our hearts. May it blaze out, welcoming all into a light of love. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn this week, number 38, Morning Has Broken. As we go forth, may we walk softly on the earth. May we remember that the wind carries our prayers, the water carries our dreams, and the land holds the footprints of those who came before. Go in peace, knowing that every step you take is part of a great circle of life, of spirit, and of love to which we are all held. Peace, ashe, and may it be so. And remember, there is cake and ice cream out on the lanai.